in my humble opinion, there are significant differences about how you should treat athletes if they are classic explosive types or classic endurance type athletes. It is a significant difference. And I think in history and even today, a lot of coaches made the mistake that they considered athletes to be lazy just because they didn't perform under endurance conditions, when in reality they were excellent explosive athletes. Maybe in the wrong sport. Maybe they had the wrong training plan. Now, I do training plans for a lot of different athletes, a lot of different types of athletes, a lot of different ages, levels, skills. And I've started to work as a coach when I was 14. This is when I started to frequently work with people, teaching them the basics of rowing. And so I do think I have quite a bit of experience in dealing with different types of people. The reason why it is so important to distinguish between fast twitch and slow twitch type of athletes is that you can mess up an athlete completely, get her or him into overtraining rapidly, if you don't understand which loads these people need, what type of training loads they need, and more importantly, what type of recovery loads they need. Let's look at this little list I did. I didn't animate it, so you can read everything, and I'm just going to discuss the different points. So first of all, classic slow twitch type. A classic slow twitch type is the endurance type. And you find out, or you know that you are the classic endurance type of athlete if you prefer or like, quote unquote, longer sessions. So a longer session would be at least 45 minutes, usually at least 60 minutes to 90 minutes or 2 hours. On the other hand side, a classic fast twitch type would easily get bored if something takes longer than 20 to 30 minutes. The moment you try to keep the same intensity, doing the same stroke routines and no technical exercises or so, these people get bored, and at the same time, their performance drops. And it's the way the muscles are wired, and it's the way they demand nutrition. If you are a coach and you want to find out what type of athlete do I actually have here, you just ask questions. This is what I do. What do you like? You know, I'm going to talk about the mixed forms later, and also the endurance type of athletes who are trained explosively and vice versa, because this is quite tricky to spot. Point number 2, classic slow twitch types do not like to sprint. They can go at a pretty steep pace for a very long time, but you will never see any peak speed. On the other hand side, the classic fast twitch type, explosive type, will love to sprint and will happily create enormous speeds, but for a short period of time. You know, it's like comparing a diesel engine with a turbo-powered gas engine, to put it very bluntly. A classic endurance type needs time to get into a race. So if the race is only 500 meters long, there's going to be a problem. They don't like that. It's sprint. Now, a race, the classic endurance type likes races from 1,000 to 2,000 meters and up. So ideally head race, like head of the Charles, or like 5K plus, you know, or Rose from Wörthersee, if you don't know that race in Austria. It's a 16-kilometer race in a single. It's actually heavily contested. And the classic explosive type will actually love to lead from the start, and the sooner the race is over, the better. For a slow twitch type, the longer the race lasts, the better it is. It is the way their physiology works. It has nothing to do with lack of motivation. It's nothing to do with lack of passion. It is simply the way their bodies work. You can change this to a certain degree, but you need to know how. You know, but this video is only about how to spot whether or not somebody is explosive or endurance type. Now, a classic slow twitch type, full power, low rate, you know, stroke rate 16 to 20, full power for a while. This is going to be no problem for a slow twitch type of fiber athlete, because they cannot waste themselves so badly with one motion. So one repetition is going to be no problem for the slow twitch fiber athlete, because they cannot contract muscles the same way that explosive athletes can. I'm probably more in the explosive side, so if I row, I can kill myself with very, very low rates, but I can produce a lot of power over a short distance of time. If you talk about, let's say, Jakob Zwölver, one of my former athletes, he was able to do at his peak, he had about the 320, 330, 340 watt, depending on which day, at O level. So this is 2 millimol. This would be his low to medium endurance pace as an under 23 lightweight. This is absolutely phenomenal. And he would keep this without any major problems for 20 to 30 minutes. You know, most explosive athletes would not be able to do this. An explosive athlete is able to produce a lot of power even with low reps, and it's going to waste that person badly. An endurance type of athlete will not be able to produce the same amount of power, but if you ask that person to go full power, it's not going to be everything they have, so they can sustain this level for a longer period of time. Does that make sense? I hope so. If not, just put it in the comment section below. I'm trying to clarify that. If you want to make your endurance type athletes really tired, what you need to do is have long intervals. So long intervals of medium to pretty much steep intensity levels is probably the only way to make classic endurance type of athletes really tired. On the other hand side, if you do the same thing with an explosive athlete, they're going to be wasted. You have to be careful how you structure these sessions. It's a lot of difference here. A classic slow twitch fiber athlete will require continuous endurance load to recover well. So if you, as a coach, if you schedule for your super endurance athletes 2 days off, and think they're going to recover faster, you're wrong. They will, at least my opinion and my experience, they need at least 45 to 60 minutes at a very, very low intensity, easy cycling or something like that. On the other hand side, the classic explosive athlete will benefit from a day off. One of the best examples in my experience is Alex. He works for us at Biro and also is one of my former athletes. And when he was a junior, lightweight junior, he broke his ankle while kite surfing. It was about 3 months before the nationals. And so he couldn't actually do endurance training because he couldn't use his legs for 6 weeks. So all he could do was basically upper body strength training. So a lot of bench pull and bench lift. This is what you do. He wasn't sure whether or not he would even be able to compete. In fact, he won. He became national champion. It was the junior lightweight men's single back then. And this is when I found out that truly explosive type of athletes actually need complete off periods to recover faster. On the other side, if you compare this with Jakob, he's the extreme opposite, that he would actually become slower because his body would stop to function the same way if you had him do full days off. He needed volume. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it needed volume. Probably the best way to distinguish between explosive and endurance athletes is when you do weight training. And one of the most important ways to find this out is with a simple weight training exercise. I wouldn't even call it a test. I don't really believe in strength training tests. And you can see that if an endurance athlete can do, for example, 80 kilos, a certain exercise, whatever it is, doesn't really matter, 15 times, but not once, 85 kilos, so a pretty narrow increase in weight, then there is a pretty big chance that the explosive opposite athlete will easily be able and happily to do 100 kilos maybe 3 to 5 times, but let's say 50 kilos not 20 times. So the difference between the amount of weight you can move for 15 to 20 times or 30 times is significantly different than the amount of weight you can move for 3 to 4 times in both directions. And that's a very, very important factor how to find out on which side somebody is. If you have your endurance athlete do a 3 to 5 rep per set strength training, they will probably not feel the impact too badly, while the explosive athlete is wasted with 5 reps. Absolutely, because they contract. The way they contract the muscles is so much more demanding, and it's so much more the limit of what they can do versus an endurance type of athlete, that an explosive athlete will actually see massive effects from 3 to 5 rep strength training sessions. Let's talk about the exception. The major exception is if you have a certain type of athlete who is trained to be a different type. So you could have classic explosive athletes who all they've done was endurance sports. They still respond in terms of recovery like explosive athletes, but they do require a bit of endurance load to trigger that. It's not about finding out what a person is and now this person can never row because in rowing you need this or that. In rowing you need both anyway. So as a rowing coach, the ultimate goal is to get people balanced to the degree where even an explosive athlete is fast for the first 1,000, if you talk about 2K race, and is able to use the afterburners, the second 1K, without being wasted after 200 meters. This is the extent of endurance you need to build up with these people. With endurance athletes, you need to train them in a way that their base speed is so high that their lack of sprintability, if there's even a word like this, is compensated by their absolute massive base speed. This is probably a topic for another video. All right. I hope this was helpful. I hope you could benefit from that. If it doesn't answer the question fully, or if you have further questions, just put your comments in the comment section below, and I'm very happy to help you. All the best. Bye-bye.